Naval ideas, that's a big thing there. It's because Sweden's gone, like, really colonial. Sweden is, in fact, I think, the second largest colonial nation after Spain right now. And in fact, if we just go over here, we can see their huge holdings in Canada. I guess the Netherlands is probably second because they basically own the Caribbean. And then the Brits. We can do a look at the size of the different colonial nations, but we'll do that after the war. We have other priorities. And the Ottomans have joined. Whose side? The Ottomans have gone after France. So it's the Ottomans, Aragon, Commonwealth, Spain, Papal States, Anjou versus France, Florence, Britain, the Netherlands, Trier. So the entire world is basically engulfed in warfare. Notably, this is not the Ottomans against Austria. So I don't really know what the Ottoman objective here is. The Ottoman reconquest of Bari. So the Ottomans are trying to get into Italy. Maybe to get a way of going after Rome. And also the Ottomans weakening Florence is definitely going to be in the Ottoman interest. So Florence needs to be very careful here that they don't get weakened. Florence has... Oh, no. No, they haven't. Florence hasn't been investing in upgrading their forts. Val, you're always talking about how you love attrition. How can you possibly think to attrition someone if you don't upgrade your forts? If you don't upgrade your forts, how can you ever possibly attrition someone? Crikey. That's also a lot of attrition damage being taken by Helson right now. Although the French alliance is now going to need to be very careful about taking too many casualties against the Prussians, although France's manpower is insane. The Ottomans have 150,000. France actually has 235,000. Prussia are the ones that need to be careful. Hello.
Mordred, I'm going to be real quick here because I realize you have a lot of fun stuff to do.
Yeah, I do.
Newfoundland has 30 development in total.
Cool. I'll take a look at that after the wars. Thanks.
Yeah, that's all. See ya.
See ya. So that was one of the Danish objectives completed. I know that they were super close in that one. We've got the French fighting against the Russians primarily. 60,000 against 120,000. This is the first offensive battle by the French. The previous ones have been defensive. The Prussians do have the quality commander here, and also they have the sheer weight of numbers with the Russians finally arriving. We haven't seen the Mughals appearing yet. I wonder if the Mughals are going to take this opportunity to backstab the Ottomans and try and take some lands against the Ottomans. But we've got 180,000 against 186,000. And this seems to be a much closer battle, with the French actually taking some fairly substantial losses. Both sides really taking some real damage here. 2,000 against 1,000, 2,000 against 1,100. We've got even more Frenchmen still on the way in. We've got 20,000 additional French just sitting here watching, seeing what's going on. And again, that French back line looking amazing. I didn't get to see what the Russians were bringing in terms of artillery, but I'm curious. The French alliance had 75,000 artillery to the Prussians with their 60. And I do think it is artillery. What level artillery is this? Oh, large... Yeah, no, probably not actually. I think it's the artillery that's swinging this, but it's not the artillery that's deciding this. Not yet. Not until you get leather cannon at the very least. Demi-cannon. Demi-cannon at the least, then with leather cannon, that's when artillery really starts to rock. Still a bit too early. Artillery at this phase is mostly about sieging. And they have taken their first fort. Altmark has fallen. Anhalt is going to be second. Now, how many of these are mercenary? All. Most. So what is this costing France? France is losing, whoa, a lot of money at the moment. But I do wonder if they're going to be gaining subsidies from Britain. Britain currently just feeding them just a little dribble of money, not a huge amount. And I think that that's the subsidy from steering trade as opposed to subsidies to actually help them pay for this war. We have got the Ottomans spreading out. So no, we have the Ottomans in Venice at the moment. Venice, I think, staying neutral in this conflict at the moment. Who are Venice's allies? Venice is a truce with Ethiopia and France. I think they reneged on defending France in this war against the Ottomans. The last thing that Venice wants is to fight against the Ottomans. They are still allied with the Knights of Cologne and Florence. Had this been against Florence, I think they probably would have answered that call. This might be the Ottomans trying to deny the Italian states from France, because those states are one of France's goals. They need to take, I think it's 2 of the, or 3 of the areas down here. 2 of those areas. Meanwhile, any other battles showing up? Not just yet. These guys are just in the process of reforming. Prussia regaining some of their manpower, although they are 12,000 short. At this point, I would definitely start consolidating these units and then saving the manpower to replenish cavalry and artillery. Although the other thing that we need to look at is professional. Oh dear. Prussia's professionalism is low. France's none. I'm guessing, yeah, the Ottomans have quite a lot, so the Ottoman units are going to be hitting a lot harder than you probably would expect. Now the other query, where are the Mughals? Are there any Mughal troops on the way? We have all the Russians. The Mughals are technically in this war, but the Mughals don't seem particularly interested in fighting it. It is mostly Russia, and Russia is really committing here. We do have Ottomans to assist against the French, so once the Ottomans start joining in, that's going to be quite interesting. We can see the Florentines just taking out the poor old Austrians here. Austria really has been just like the battlefield of empires. I think Austria has taken the role of Poland in this particular universe. So many wars fought over Austria. Oh, we have another attack going on here. This is a level 4 fort, and they're still at 21%. 60,000 Frenchmen holding this settlement at the moment. 60,000 against 50,000. The Prussians first in, but again, very few artillery in the back line for the Prussians, and this is a problem. They do have more artillery this time, but the back line is just filled up with infantry reinforcements. It is 200,000 Prussians against 67,000 Frenchmen. I think sheer weight of numbers is beating the French up. We do have a lot of French reinforcements pouring in, 100,000 against 200,000. Commonwealth decided, you know what? Nah, not interested. And they are pulling back, and that was a peace deal being denied there. Commonwealth immediately turning around. I suspect he probably just misclicked or something like that. 150,000 manpower, though none of the Prussians now in the front line. Prussia might actually want to retreat their army, get some morale back, and then rejoin the battle to allow their infantry to filter through to the front, because right now it's their allies taking the front line, although they are doing still a lot of damage to the French. That should not be underestimated. The French now 47,000 manpower short. They're going to hit 50,000 very soon that they're going to need to replenish. But it is still 6.5 against 5.8 morale. Discipline being roughly equal. I got to say, Calico's done a great job keeping his discipline really high. And then that means the tactics is a solid 2.4 for both sides. The Prussian artillery backline has now made it, but again, I think the Prussians being sent packing by the sheer strength of French arms. Meanwhile, the Ottomans have arrived. We've got the Ottoman siege stack, the classic 5,000 infantry, 15,000 artillery that Helson loves to use, going after Florence here. And if we flip over to Florence, we can see that they can see all of the Ottomans just sitting there behind that stack, basically just letting Helson take out. And I think this is one of the reasons that Helson's such a strong wartime player, is he's really good at managing attrition. That's a very, very light attrition stack right there. Bussy has his own manpower issues. Yeah, Bussy had the really long war, well, his AI war against Britain last time, defending Malwa. Or was it Bahmanis? Defending Bahmanis, I think. Anyway, the French have taken Stade, they've taken Altmark, they've taken Anhalt. What's left? Ulanor. Also known as Berlin. And then their Prussian defences. France actually spamming out even more infantry, and I'm guessing that... Okay, so I think that this being such a nice round number is Britain just feeding them money. So instead of doing it through subsidies, Britain's just sending gifts, so that they don't become reliant on the feeding of cash. So this is why it's so important to have Britain on your side in these wars, because it allows you just to keep these mercenaries just flowing. Meanwhile, the Ottoman force is really starting to hammer Florence. And Florence is probably really wishing that they'd upgraded some of those forts, because they could have been holding the Ottomans up for quite a lot longer. And actually, let's just go and switch over to the Ottomans real quick. They have 120,000 manpower. France is down to 183,000. And I'm guessing that Prussia has been virtually tapped. Getting there. What about Russia? Russia at 25,000 with 16,000 short. Russia's going to run out soon too. And then the Commonwealth would be the other one with 71,000. So I think that the Prussian side is basically lost already. And this is really going to become between the French and the Ottomans now. Is that a 40k joke? Eleanor was where Horus had his great triumph before becoming the War Master. Possibly. Probably. I mean, Prussia is known as the Space Marines. Oh, and Spain are fighting, of course. Spain are going to be nibbling at the backside of France, mostly going after the Spanish marches back here. Has France been keeping these forts upgraded? Level 4, level 4. Barcelona is not one. Tuchel, level 4. Level 5, nice. So yeah, Spain's going to have their hands full for a while. France does have a little bit of defense in depth, but not a huge amount. I think really the big threat here is going to be Florence. And they're not blockading anyone. I'm a little bit surprised by that. Florence caught napping here, getting stack wiped by the Prussians. 20,000 dead just there. Denmark involved at all? No, Denmark is not currently involved. They are sitting neutral like Venice. Oh, we've got Ottomans spilling across the borders into France. Now we have another level 4 fort. So France has done fairly well with the forts. They haven't decided to defend this at all. So no protection from naval invasions, but quite a lot on the borders. Meanwhile, another big fight. This time primarily the Ottomans, although the Ottomans on a -2. Ooh, not sure that that was a good idea, because that doesn't actually count as a defensive battle, because that's not their fort, it's the Prussian fort. 5.6 morale against the Dutch, 6.6. 115 discipline against 100 discipline. However, the Ottomans are probably going to be quite a few Janissaries, if I'm actually seeing them right now. And then also a huge contingent of cavalry, which are going to be the Polish Hussars, finally arriving. But this does look like it's going to be another great victory for the French, because just the damage output of those guys is crazy. Oh, it wasn't even a fort. Okay. That was just a -2. That was a little bit of a questionable attack there by the Ottomans. Meanwhile, in Italy, the Ottomans just pushing ever south. The French getting some more troops going on. What's Britain doing throughout all of this? Because Britain is involved in this war, though only against the Ottomans. We have the First Fleet, who are the light ships, who are not currently trading. We have the White Squadron, who is down here in Africa, probably left in India, and they forgot to have them return home before the war was actually declared. And now the Prussians and the Russians very much found to be on the defensive, as the mighty French army is just make mincemeat of anyone that stands against them. What's with the player loaning Port of Pisa? One of the players wanted to come back as a very minor faction, and Florence allowed him. While the Ottomans took the fight, the Prussian-Russian forces picked off a couple of the French stacks in the north, so it was a good pinning move. Aha! Interesting. That might have been why the Florentines were destroyed? Possibly. And it does look like the French forces are now withdrawing. They've done enough damage against the Prussians. They know it's going to take the Prussians a little bit of time to retake all of that territory, so I suspect that we're going to start seeing them moving down here into Italy. Also, the Spanish have almost broken through Navarra, and this is one place where they probably want to fight because it's a nice mountain province, while Roussillon is only hills, and Barcelona, I think, is farmlands, no, grasslands. Le Bourg is forest, and Narbonne is plains. I think you probably actually want your fort in Toulouse, not Narbonne. Toulouse would also block people coming through Narbonne, because here you have hills, Toulouse you have farmland, so there's no defensive bonus at all. Meanwhile, the Swedes continue to kill some of the miners. We've got the loaning port of Pisa fighting against Württemberg and are about to get caught out themselves. Calico is unconditional. Really? You were winning. Who did they unconditional against? Ottomans? Yeah. This might be partially to block them from actually taking anything from Florence. The only thing the Ottomans can take is this. It's still got 100,000 manpower. That's not good for Florence. That's a lot of separatists. Peace declared. Lands returned to the Papal States. So the Papal States are again a viable faction. Interesting. And now the war against Prussia continues. So France just lost one of their back doors to getting one of their goals completed. But the war continues against these guys. And most importantly, Florence did not lose Rome. So that was actually a fairly strategic thing to basically say, I will abandon one of my goals, but I'm also going to stop the Ottomans from getting one of theirs. And now the Ottomans are going to have a truce, depending on what they took, for 15 years. That's actually a full 15-year truce. Wow. I'm guessing that they took a bunch of cash, too. No. War reparations, surely. Yes. Only 13 ducats. Oh no, they definitely did take... Yeah, they definitely did take money. It's just, I guess, Britain immediately paid him even more to stop him going into debt. Oh, Aragon! Yeah. Aragon's back. 48 has got a country again. Well spotted, I'd missed that. Best CB, no CB. They're not allowed to use no CBs. They're allowed to truce break, but no CBs. Aragon seems to be Aragon. Well, actually, Aragon is a vassal of Spain's, and that relationship doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon. Aragon seems to have enjoyed his time as a vassal of Spain. I think Spain's not really interested in Iberia. Spain's colonial. Meanwhile, the war against the Prussians continues onwards, and the peaceing out of the Ottomans there, I think, is going to be humbling for the German powers. I do wonder what they're going to take here. Stad is probably going to go to the Netherlands. It's not a centre of trade. Austria is probably going to have to give up lands to France. Poor old Austria. Maybe colonial stuff? The only colonial power here, though, is Sweden. Prussia is not colonial. Russia is not colonial. Meanwhile, Denmark. What's Denmark going to be doing about this? They're just sitting here drilling. This would be an excellent opportunity for Denmark to go after Prussia if they were interested in it. Or the Netherlands. We've seen the Danes go after the Dutch before. Although they did sell all of the territories that they'd taken off of the Dutch back to the Dutch. Which is something I actually need to double check.